Welcome to the 40 to 40 podcast. Join me, your host John Weiser, as I explore life 40 degrees south of the equator. Welcome back to the 40/40 podcast. Thank you for joining me. Today, I'm excited to talk about tourism in Argentina. I've got two of my really good friends with me who actually were with me in Argentina in March of last year, so March of 2023, and we did a really great Argentina trip where we saw Buenos Aires and went all the way down to the glaciers in the south, and then back up to the mountains in Bariloche, and finished in my wife's city in Neuquén. It was a great time. It was a fun group of friends to do vacation with, and I wanted to bring them on to talk today about what Argentina could do better to make tourism more comfortable, especially for English speakers, and maybe ways that English speakers could have an accessible first trip to Argentina. So my two guests, I got Gabriel Brea. I'm blanking on your last name. Sorry, Gabriel. And Gabriel is one of the smarter mathematician friends that I had. He studied actuarial science, landed in the West Coast doing actuary for pet insurance, actually.
That's right.
Not the typical actuary field, but yeah, our pets need insurance too, I suppose. And yeah. So Gabriel, he notably he runs a Airbnb, or he has run an Airbnb, so he has a little bit of a sensation of what makes an Airbnb guest feel comfortable and feel at home and enjoy the experience. And so I think that can help you to speak to what Argentina could do better on the sensation of making guests feel better while they're here, right? And then my other guest today is Diego Campos, who is now the executive chef at Camp in downtown Greenville. Is that right, Diego?
That is correct. You got it right.
All right. So congrats on that. That's awesome. I'm looking forward to hopefully coming back this summer and check out the restaurant. But as a chef, you have the experience of when a guest comes, not just they have good food, but they have a good experience, the sensation of the ambiance, and also in your particular restaurant, the kitchen is an exposed kitchen, so the chef has a little bit of a job of hospitality, of how does the guest feel, making it like a special experience. And Diego's, I think you're especially good at that, because every time that I visit your house, we wake up in the morning and it's like a 5-star breakfast, and you're preparing special drinks for us at night, and so you make people feel very welcome. And so it's awesome to be able to see you using your gifts and your abilities now in the chance to have a restaurant that you can run and make it your own in some ways. So that's great.
Thank you, John.
So thank you
only for special guests like you, okay?
Oh yeah, thank you. Thanks you guys for joining me. So my first question for you would be, we can start with Gabrielle, would be, what's your experience in travel? Like, what parts of the world have you been to? You're from the Dominican, obviously, which has a tourism culture as well, on the beach there. Mm-hmm. So what is your experience with tourism, and what do you look for to make like an exceptional vacation for you, an exceptional time traveling, exploring the world?
That's a great question. I think being from the Dominican Republic really gives me an edge of understanding culture, and then living in the U.S., I think the biggest advantage, I guess, that I would have that maybe other people, listeners of this podcast, don't understand is understanding how other cultures work. It's really easy when you're looking for what culture do I want to experience. So I've been to, obviously, the Dominican Republic. I've been to Haiti as well, which is maybe not tourism, but I've been there. I've been all over the U.S., a lot of internal tourism, been over to Canada, been to Australia, Argentina, and then most recently Japan. So Japan was a very interesting choice because I've always had, everywhere that I've gone, as far as tourism, I can speak with the person very easily. So I can either speak Spanish, I can speak English, I can speak some French, but then in Japan, the culture is completely different. So when I'm traveling and I'm looking for a place to go, or I'm looking for new experiences, I think the biggest thing that draws me is the culture. So how does the culture fit what I understand it to be, i.e., what is it about this culture that draws me near? So for Australia, it was the big down under, right? The accent, the outback, the outdoors. That's what drew me there. And once I got there, I was like, wow, put more shrimp in the barbie, type deal. Really enjoyed the food, really fun. In Japan, what drew me was the organization. Coming from a Hispanic country that's not very organized, so to speak, There's a lot of improvements. There's a lot of things that we can do better. Going to Japan was the order, and getting on the train and really understanding how people don't talk and people sit quietly and they make themselves small. Whereas in my culture, you make yourself everything. You make yourself bigger and everything's just louder. And then there, everything was very orderly, very fashionable, and food was awesome as well. So when I'm seeking travel, I think I'm looking for the understanding of different cultures. And then in Argentina, which is a Hispanic culture, but it's very different from my country, the Dominican Republic, right? The people were way friendlier than I thought they would be. I think there's the misconception in the US, like Argentinians, they're not really friendly. That's completely and utterly wrong. They were so friendly, so welcoming, really enjoyed it. So that conception of culture versus the actual perception of it and experiencing it is something that really draws me when I'm looking for travel or new experiences to enjoy.
Okay. So somehow for you, it's challenging your stereotypes or your knowledge that you've developed from a distance with the reality of what it's like to actually be in this new location.
Yeah, and I think to be fair, of the United States, the culture of the United States, all I knew about it was movies, right?
Right.
So everyone's blonde, everyone's tall, everyone's built, and everyone's rich. That's the misconception that I had of the United States, and then actually coming here and experiencing that culture and understanding that there's subcultures within different regions. It's just something that I really enjoy. The beauty of understanding what drives people to do things the way that they do, and how different we are is all based on preconceived notions, or also all based on the culture itself.
Okay. No, fair enough. So, Diego, same question for you. What are you looking for when you are planning a vacation, when you're planning travel over the world, and where are some of the places that you've been?
I think based on my field, which is the culinary world, the service industry, something that really motivates me nowadays, probably this is something that has been motivating me a little bit more in the past 10 years, is the food culture in each country. Touching back on our trip to Argentina, I mean, Argentina is well known for their food culture. Everything revolves around the dining table, from great wine to great beef, great vegetables, which, they don't need a lot of vegetables, it seemed like, but they do enjoy meat.
Yeah.
But I think that's something that motivated me for the past 10 years. Previous to that, and I mean, still is the culture, like Gabriel was saying. If there's something that that I find interesting in the culture, that's going to be pushing me that way. Recently, about 2 years ago, my brothers and I, we were able to go to Turkey, and something beautiful about that experience was almost similar to Gabriel in the sense of his trip to Japan. Entirely different religion, entirely different language, entirely different culture. And it was something amazing that for some people it might be frightening or shocking. But for us, we really wanted to experience that and just allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in that sense, not knowing the language, not being able to have dialogue with the people there other than by, hand gestures and pointing and drawings on papers or things like that.
Right.
And it's great. It's beautiful. It's something that I've enjoyed, and thankfully from a young age, my parents, they always try to teach us about traveling and getting to know other people's cultures, and being respectful towards their culture. That's why maybe for me it comes almost second nature to be able to enjoy other people's culture. Not to be only enclosed in my Hispanic, Spanish culture, but be exposed, like wanting to be exposed to more. Some places that I've been able to travel to a good bit in South America with my brothers. We did a nice trip we started in Bogota in Colombia, and then we ended up going all the way south to Santiago de Chile. So we went through Ecuador, Peru, Bolivia, and then down to Chile, a few trips to Brazil. We got to travel in Uruguay, Argentina with you, John. Costa Rica. My wife is from Costa Rica, so we go there a good bit of times. Panama, El Salvador. I'm from Mexico, so we got to see a good bit of Mexico. Canada, some places, Cuba, which actually I ended up going to Cuba with you, John. That's
Yep.
true.
That was an
Cuba
experience.
was super cool. Yeah. That one was interesting. And then in Europe, we've been to Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Finland, Turkey, Greece, and Rome. And I think that's it. I haven't been able to go to Asia
That's it.
other than
You guys are both really well traveled. That's Diego, you were in Norway and Denmark?
yeah, correct. Yeah, this is back in 2010.
Wow, okay. Very cool.
I was going to say, Dave, but your hair is looking spectacular after that trip to Turkey.
Right? You can see that it's yeah, maybe a few dots in there.
Awesome.
Also the beard.
So I think you guys both have a particularly good perspective to actually speak knowledgeably about tourism, since you've done it, and you have you both are from different cultures. Now you're living in another culture. I think it's unique because, Gabriel, you mentioned the culture side. Diego, you said that your particular passion in cooking and in food is definitely something that you look for, but you also enjoy the cultural experience and the interacting with people, even if you can't communicate. So you guys are both very adventurous, I would say. And mine is similar, but I have like this like wanderlust that I just want to be like on the top of a mountain, or I want to be like 1,000 miles away from people, or some place that no one's ever been, which is it's kind of hard to do. But like when I got a chance to drive to Ushuaia recently and get to the end of the world, I just wanted to go farther. I just wanted to get in a boat and go to the next island and then go to Antarctica. So I think there's something just about the pureness of just exploring and being one of the few people who's been to Antarctica or some strange mountain that no one's ever climbed before. It's definitely something I look for. But no, it's interesting. Each one of us has something a little bit different, but definitely some common ties and like the cultural interests. So my first question about the Argentina trip would be, like, Gabriel, for example, what was a highlight of the trip? What was something that you really enjoyed about your visit to Argentina?
So I need to start by saying I was a month in recovery from an ACL surgery.
Yeah. Poor Gabriel.
And the flight there was long, which has nothing to do with Argentina itself. It's all about where I used to live. But nonetheless, I was super excited about the trip. Obviously, we're going with a great group of people. We had been planning it for years, it seemed like. And getting there, the biggest thing that surprised me is being from a Hispanic country. A lot of times we don't have accessibility for people that have disabilities or people in wheelchairs and whatnot. And the biggest shocker, as soon as I walk into the airport, is there's a separate line for people with kids and people with disabilities. I was like, oh my word, I love this. This is awesome. I'm over here with my crutches, And just even then, the welcoming of like, nope, you don't stand in the huge line. You actually go around this way, and you follow this line. That's a specific line. That was something just right off the bat. I was like, just making my travel a little bit easier, especially with this little impediment that I got. I think my favorite thing of Argentina, to be honest, was the food. Obviously, the beef. I like beef. And then going there and eating all sorts of beef everywhere was amazing. Coming from the dollar to the Argentinian peso really, really allowed and broadened those horizons to benefit from the exchange rate. But I think the biggest thing was the food, the quality that I spent with friends, the culture of just laid back, have fun, enjoy it. Something that I really, really enjoyed. I think two shocks that I got initially were number one, how much I had to get comfortable just going to people and be like, dollar blue, like, do you guys take dollar blue? Like, it's not the official exchange rate, and then just carrying lots of cash. What's a big shock, right? I wasn't ready to just carry $2 equivalent bills. That was the highest bill at the time. That was kind of shocking. And then the other shock that I mentioned was from my Hispanic background. A lot of times people look at Argentinians as people who are stuck up, not really friendly. They only care about football and their beef, whatever. And that was the misconception that I didn't particularly have, because I have Argentinian friends and I've been involved with that, but I know commonly a lot of people have. And then just getting there and realizing how friendly the Argentinians truly are and how welcoming they were, at least from my point of view, was spectacular. Really loved it. I remember the Uber that we took, and apparently Punta Cana, Dominican Republic, is a top hit within Argentinians to go and tourist and visit, which is my home country. I've been there plethora of times. Just realizing them being super friendly, and even just asking them and them saying, well, the people that you've probably encountered overseas are probably Argentinians that are stuck up that can afford to do that. But the common folk, the Argentinian people that are welcoming people from day in, day out, had no issues, no problem, very friendly, very good conversations.
Okay. Diego, same question for you. What was like a highlight of the trip?
I think my personal highlight of the trip was the sightseeing. Just how beautifully the landscape is, the nature. I mean, flying south to Perito Moreno, to the glaciers. I mean, it was just beautiful. And then taking that ferry that took us, inside the lakes and the rivers, and it was just beautiful. I had honestly never seen anything like that. I mean, maybe closest thing to it would be in Norway, like the fjords, but we didn't make it too far north to where we saw the glaciers. But I mean, it was beautiful. It was breathtaking. And then Bariloche, the whole culture that is kind of like a beautiful mixture of Hispanic Latin culture mixed with Swiss Alps kind of deal. It was pretty cool. I mean, it's very unique, being in a place that is so clean. So the air is just like crisp and clean, and the lake is beautiful, and then the trees and everything, and everybody's speaking your own language. It's pretty cool. It was really nice. I mean, I had never been in a place like that. In Latin America, we're used to, as Gabriel was saying, the kind of like the chaos in the cities, in the big cities, the jungle in Costa Rica, things like that, and then seeing this beautiful forest with the lakes. I love the forest. I love the mountains more than the beach, so maybe that's why it touched me a little bit more. But yeah, it was just breathtaking, the sightseeing, and also, I mean, the food. We enjoyed a few good bottles of wine amongst friends, and I don't know. I guess that's what memories are made of: good times and good friends.
Yeah, I think the contrast of the country was incredible too, because you guys remember it was like just sweating hot in Buenos Aires, and the air conditioning wasn't working that well. It kept dripping, and the bucket would fill up, and then the neighbor below us would tell us we need to empty it because it was getting water on them, and I was kind of and big cities tired me out a little bit. And then we went 3.5 hour plane ride to just what felt like so remote, and just the windswept grasses, and the Lago Argentino had all the glacier sediment in it, and so it's all turquoisey. And the wind was hitting it and causing little waves on the lake, and it's just amazing. That was the same country, right? And the same trip, and the same part, And probably my.
But that's how big.
Oh, go ahead, Diego.
Sorry, John. That's how big Argentina is. That, I mean, a lot of people don't even think about that. People hear of Argentina and they're like, "Oh, Patagonia," but then in the north you have a little bit of. I mean, the border with Paraguay and Brazil is pretty much jungle. And then you have the border with Bolivia that is more desert-like, and then the south that is forest and super arid. I mean, it's just a vast country. It's huge.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think it's hard to realize that when you've never visited before. I was just gonna say my favorite photo of the trip, with in hindsight, was the one that you took, Gabriel. Where my wife and I were picking up poop off the sidewalk in Calafate. So we're in Calafate, which is like this nature reserve to see Perito Moreno, which is like the biggest glacier. And then we're super enjoying it. And then and there's all these signs like don't leave food, don't leave foreign waste, because you got to protect this natural environment. And then I think it's Gabriel was like, "Hey guys, like look over here." And we turn around, and my son is just full squat with the perfect emoji poop, right? Just like the little spiral. Like he had to go. He was potty trained, so he knew not to go in his pants, and so he just went
with the right thing.
And he had a nice view of the glacier while he was relieving himself. And so, but the photo, which was great, was we were cleaning it up, and I remember now the particularly great part about it was the gentleman in the background with
side eye.
absolutely disgusted face. Like, yeah. Oh, good times. Good times. So, I got one more question. What do you have a particularly favorite meal that you actually remember? A specific meal, Gabriel?
Man,
Testing your memory.
yeah, when we were in Calafate, I don't know if you remember, we went up to the restaurant and we could oversee the Lago Argentino. And then we had the traditional asado, and they were doing the asado there. I just really enjoyed that meal where we shared with everyone. And I think both Diego and I, we were definitely overeating, just taking advantage of the
We
exchange rate.
overate the whole trip. We had the
Just
meat
the
sweats
whole
every
time,
day.
every day. And then Diego would order one thing, and I was like, Diego, but I want to try that too. And he's like, let's just both get 2 plates. So
It's
we
not
would
that
just
expensive.
get so many plates. It wasn't that expensive. But I really, really enjoyed the traditional asado there. And just eating, I forget the name. It's like a deer-like creature in Calafate that we ate. I don't know, Diego, if you remember the name of.
Guanaco.
I know exactly what you're talking
Yes,
about. Yeah,
yes,
guanaco.
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 It's more like a
And
llama.
The
then,
guanaco empanadas.
yeah, more like a lamb, right? And then eating the guanaco empanada, I just know it was so different. And I know the girls were a little bit terrified because we had just seen wild guanaco running around, and then I'm over here
Yeah.
eating it. But that was pretty enjoyable. I really, really enjoyed that with friends. And then obviously the asado of your suegro was amazing as well for Bruno's party.
Yeah, he knows how to cook. Diego,
Yeah.
favorite meal?
I was thinking about that asado by your suegro,
Right.
your father-in-law. That
And he did
it was beautiful. I mean,
he did beef ribs, right?
he did beef ribs.
He
He
did
did a
everything.
chorizo, and he also did a pork. I think it was like a pork flat iron or something like that.
Yeah,
That stuff was delicious. That pork was
matambre, I
delicious.
think.
Yeah, it was the matambre. But also, I don't know if you guys remember the dinner we had in Bariloche. I forgot the name of the restaurant. Neuma, but
Um, Anima, no?
Anima, yeah, Anima.
Anima. That's incredible.
Very
Forgot
small
about that one.
restaurants,
Yes.
like 20 seats. I remember the cocktails that we had. We were just sharing everything. Like we would take a
Stuff
sip
in it.
and then pass it to the right.
Right.
It was just
I
beautiful.
remember.
Yeah, that restaurant was incredible because it was basically gourmet like tapas, right? Or appetizers. And it had two chefs
Exactly.
in the kitchen. And I remember they had like a set of tweezers across their pocket.
Yeah,
And they got the tweezers and they grab like a flower and like place it perfectly on your appetizer. And
Yeah.
I was like, this is gonna be good. And then what do we pay? We pay like $25 per person, maybe.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
something like
I
that.
think so.
Oh, that's a-
And I
Everybody
remember we were
else
just
were
like, Diego, what's this drink? Oh, it was a mint lemon something. It's like, this is delicious. Should we order 2 more? Let's just do it. Can we have 2 more of these drinks?
I
Yeah,
remember
that's
we were
good
just doing the math. We will just do the conversion to US dollars, and we're like, oh, that's $1.50. Yeah, let's get another one.
Yeah, unfortunately, that is changing. If any of the listeners are
Yeah,
planning on coming to Argentina, the exchange rates now are actually becoming more transparent and the same for everything. And so it's you have to pay more of a realistic market value, which is fine, but we enjoyed it while it lasted.
For the
exactly.
economy, we went at the
Exactly.
right time
Yeah.
from our end, obviously.
Okay, so I'm going to end with 2 questions. I want to explore the topic of what do you think an American could do, especially one who doesn't speak English, and maybe that would be hard for you guys to think about that, but just try to answer here. What could an American do to try to plan a trip to Argentina in a way that doesn't feel too overwhelming? Like, what's your thoughts on that? And then, what do you think if we have any listeners who are involved in tourism in Argentina? What could individuals or even governments in Argentina do to make tourism a little bit easier, a little bit more accessible? Because I think it's something that more people should enjoy compared to the people who actually make it down here. Diego, you want to take that question away first? Like, what could, how could
Yeah, of
Americans
course.
have an accessible trip to Argentina?
I think, as you mentioned, I cannot put myself in their place just because of the language barrier. But I think one of the things that has helped me before in previous trips is pretty much not having any presumptions about the place. Just going to a place with an open mind, an open heart, and allowing myself to enjoy it for what it is. The U.S. is a first world country. It's amazing. I mean, it's a beautiful country to live at, and that's why there's many immigrants like myself, my family that ended up moving here. So going to a different place is not going to be the same. So you cannot have the same expectations, or you cannot expect the same commodities that you have here in the U.S. But other than that, I mean, I think, yeah, just being open and knowing that people in Argentina specifically also, they love tourism. That's a way of income. That's how people make their own money. That's how people support their lives and support their families. So they're going to be taking care of you. If you're an American traveler to Argentina, they're going to be taking care of you because, essentially you're the source of their income. That's how they're going to be able to support their families. So, don't be afraid of, going to a different city, going to Buenos Aires or traveling down to El Calafate. People are going to be taking care of you. I really felt that Argentina was very safe. Buenos Aires is a big city. So, there's going to be some, issues. It's all about being in the wrong place at the wrong time, honestly. Other than that, it's pretty safe. It's very safe. And then in the South Calafate, it's extremely safe. I never felt under danger or anything. If anything, I felt the danger of the guanacos running wild and biting each other off and fighting. But other than that, there was nothing too crazy. Bariloche was extremely safe, and then Neuquén, where the family is from, it was beautiful. But yeah, I think my advice will be, go without any presumptions. Don't have zero expectations, and just enjoy it. People are going to take care of you.
Gabriel, any other thoughts on how an American could assess or could have an accessible trip to Argentina?
Yeah, I think obviously, as Diego mentioned, it's kind of difficult for me to assess it unbiasedly because I speak the language and I have friends that really helped me plan that. But from my prior experience, just going over to Japan and experiencing the Japanese culture, not speaking a lick of Japanese, something that really helps in maybe even going to Argentina as an American is getting ready for expectations. So you can start doing simple phrases like Duolingo, right? You might not know the language, but knowing a couple of phrases can help. And then understanding that just because it's different doesn't mean it's wrong, right? That's the beauty of culture. A lot of times people do things differently based on their culture. Just because we don't do it that way in America doesn't mean it has to be done everywhere else in the world. I think just understanding, hey, set your mind, set your expectation. You're going to learn, you're going to have a plan, and that plan is not going to go the way you think it will. Just be ready to enjoy whenever it doesn't go that way and then move on to the next step. I think a lot of times we can get hung up on this is what I wanted to do and what I plan to do. And once you're experiencing another culture like the Argentinian culture, things are not going to go the way that you want them to go. And I think an example of that was, I don't know if you guys remember, I don't know if it's still there in your home, John, but I brought a wheelchair with me.
Yes.
And we were staying at a relative's place that was, I don't know, a 5-6 minute drive. And we're like, okay, we got enough time to get to the airport to come back to the United States. And there was just a demonstration down the street in March, and the street was blocked off. And we couldn't go back to John's place to pick up the wheelchair for my trip. So we had that plan. And obviously, the plan was not to leave the wheelchair in Argentina, was to bring it back home. And that plan did not go well. Even us as Hispanic did not expect that at all. Yeah. And we just, we went with it and we said, okay, this is what's going on. What are we going to do? It's just a wheelchair. We're safe. We're fine. Let's get home.
Yeah. That protest was the biggest protest I've ever seen since I've been here. They blocked the road, the main north-south road, all the way from the one east-west road at the top, so we couldn't get over, all the way down to the one main road at the bottom. So you had to go all the way down to the main road in order if you wanted to get to the airport. And that was when we were rushing to the airport, and I was in the wrong house, so I had to run to catch up with you guys, and we had to get another car from a friend because our other car was stuck over here, and that was, like you said, you just got to like roll with the punches, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm still a little upset that you didn't run down with the wheelchair, but that's okay.
That's okay. That's all right. It almost killed me to run for the first time. So, Gabriel, then what would be your opinion, if you have any thoughts of what individuals in Argentina or even Argentina in general could do to take tourism to the next level?
That's a very good question. because obviously I don't want to be critical of a different culture or how I perceive things. To be honest, I felt very welcomed, as I mentioned. I didn't have that barrier, but as an American going there and just Argentinians understanding the differences in culture, I think not having preferential treatment from where people come from, just being welcoming of if it's a Brazilian coming over, if it's a Dominican coming over, if it's a Mexican coming over and an American coming over, we ought to treat them equally. So just understanding that people are coming from different places with different notions, different languages, and just being welcoming and accepting of that person or individual in the differences of languages could really help Argentina take that next step forward. On the other hand, I think just I don't know if there's an app that lets you know when there's a protest happening or if there's any sort of organization around it, but maybe just a little bit more organization as far as like, the routes will run as according to the plan and the streets are going as according to the plan, and just a little bit more organization around, okay, this is the time that we start, this is the time that we end. And I know it goes hand in hand with the Hispanic culture. I say that fully knowing as the person who was late to even this meeting. So I think it's something that we can all learn in order to, as a Hispanic individual myself, to be mindful of the other person.
Okay. Now, that's an interesting point, because I think if you were a less flexible person and you almost missed your flight because of some protest that you don't understand and you didn't know about, that might tarnish your whole experience on the trip, right? Especially, or if you didn't miss your flight, right? That would be like unable to reconcile that, right? And so I think one good step that that is happening right now. I don't know if you can give all the credit to the government, or if it just was like, it seems like the size and the frequency of the protests are becoming less at this point. There was one big one recently for the public colleges who didn't want to be audited; they just wanted to receive more money without audits. So anyways, like it does be changing. So hopefully Argentines can understand that creating a certain sense of stability will actually possibly create more economic benefits for them with tourism and other topics as well. Diego, any closing thoughts on particular things that an Argentine host or someone in tourism could do to make the country get closer to that next level?
I think you might be touching a little bit close to what Gabriel was saying, but comparing it to my field, which is the hospitality industry. Tourism is still part of the hospitality industry. You have tourism, you also have restaurants, and the main idea or the main goal for the hospitality industry is to take care of the guests, have a genuine feeling and a genuine care for the people that are visiting your place. In my case, is my restaurant. Whenever people come to my restaurant, I want them to feel welcome. I want them to feel their best. I want to take care of them, and I want to have a genuine feeling while doing it. Regardless of whether they only eat 2 appetizers and water, or if they're going to spend a good bit of money on wine and a whole tasting menu. Same thing with tourism. Gabriel touched on this pretty much, but I mean, regardless of how many nights a person is going to stay in your Airbnb, or how much money people are going to be spending on a tour or things like that, I think it has to be a cultural thing for everybody in Argentina to take care of, to have a genuine feeling towards taking care of the guests. People are spending money to make the long flight from the US, from Europe, even from within South America. That itself is already a big expense. So I mean, that's how I see it in my restaurant. People are investing their time. It's not only their money, but they're investing their time to spend it with us in the restaurant. The same thing with traveling. People are investing their 2 weeks, their 5 days, their 2 hours, or however long it is, to be in your country. So I mean, take care of them. You just have to take care of them and give them your best.
Awesome. Well, I think it was some interesting points and good feedback from you, gentlemen. So thank you very much for joining me, explaining your personal experience in tourism in Argentina. I appreciate the time, guys.
And thank you, John, for having us.
Awesome.
Yeah, thank you, John. It was great.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. And thank you, listeners, so much for joining us for this episode. And I'll speak to you next week. Thanks and goodbye.